The Umbrella Academy opens in 1989, where 43 random women around the world give birth, having not shown any signs of pregnancy until going into labor. Eccentric billionaire Sir Reginald Hargreeves adopts 7 of those babies, and upon discovering they each have their own unique superpowers, trains them and creates the superhero team known as the Umbrella Academy. Reginald calls them each by an assigned number based on their level of usefulness to him, but their android mother Grace gives them actual names. There was number 1, Luther, who grows up to be an astronaut with super strength. After suffering critical injuries on a mission, Reginald injected him with a serum that saved his life, but gave him an ape-like torso. Number 2 is Diego, whose telekinetic abilities allow him to curve the trajectory of items like knives or bullets. Number 3 is Allison, an actress who can control other people's minds by using the phrase "I heard a rumor," and had also secretly developed a forbidden love with Luther. Number 4 is Klaus, a drug addict who can communicate with the dead. Number 5 is Nameless, as he has the ability to jump through space and time and was lost in the future before being given a proper name. Number 6 is Ben, who has the ability to summon otherworldly tentacles from his body. And number 7 is Vanya, who grows up to be a meek violinist who is alienated from her other adopted siblings for having no apparent powers. Unbeknownst to Vanya, Reginald Hargreeves prescribed her pills that suppressed her powers. As the group grew older, they began to grow apart. The death of Ben while out on a mission further fractured the group, and eventually they disbanded and went their separate ways. In the present, the siblings return home and reunite following the death of Reginald. At home, they are greeted by their android mother Grace, and Reginald's intelligent chimpanzee friend and assistant Pogo. Although the coroner stated Reginald's death was due to heart failure, the children believe he was murdered. Number 5 then teleports to the present, telling his siblings he had been lost in the future, was now 58 years old, and had been transferred back into his 13-year-old body. Oh, and he has secretly come back to prevent an apocalyptic event that would happen in 8 days. 5's only lead is a prosthetic eye he found in the future, knowing its owner was responsible for the apocalypse. As he tries to uncover and stop whoever was responsible, 5 is also pursued by agents Cha-Cha and Hazel, a pair of time-traveling assassins who work for the Commission. The Commission's purpose was to ensure that no one messed with the timeline, meaning if the apocalypse was supposed to happen, 5 couldn't be allowed to interfere. Commission agents attack 5 at a donut shop but are all killed by the superpowered hero. When Cha-Cha and Hazel question donut shop waitress Agnes, she and Hazel hit it off. Agnes points the agents toward the Hargreeves estate, where they attack the Umbrella Academy siblings. Ultimately, Cha-Cha and Hazel flee, but manage to kidnap Klaus in the process. Meanwhile, Diego's former partner and love, Detective Patch, investigates the donut shop deaths, unaware of the time-traveling conspiracy she was getting involved in. She manages to track down Cha-Cha and Hazel and free Klaus, but is murdered by Cha-Cha in the process. As Klaus escapes, he steals his captor's briefcase, which the hitmen use to travel through time. Klaus accidentally travels back in time to the Vietnam War, where he meets and falls in love with a soldier named Dave. Following Dave's death in the war, Klaus returns to the present and destroys the briefcase. Having been attacked by time-traveling hitmen and learning of Klaus's journey to the past, the Hargreeves finally confront their time-traveling brother for answers. 5 reveals that when he first traveled to the future as a child, it was to an apocalyptic wasteland where most of the world's population, including the Academy, were killed. 5 lived in the wasteland for 40 years, completely alone aside from a mannequin he named Dolores. Eventually, he was recruited by the mysterious handler to work for the Commission, traveling to various points in time to commit assassinations. Throughout his time working for the Commission, he was secretly trying to uncover the origins of the apocalypse and make his way back to his original timeline to prevent it from happening. In the present, 5 arranges for a meeting with the handler, agreeing to work for the Commission once again in exchange for the protection of his siblings. Back in the Commission offices, 5 intercepts orders for Cha-Cha and Hazel to protect a man named Harold Jenkins. 5 then travels back to the present, where he is successfully able to rally his siblings together to stop the apocalypse. Klaus uses his powers to speak with the deceased Reginald, who reveals that he orchestrated his own death in order to bring the Umbrella Academy back together. And now that they were together, they also had a target. the mysterious Harold Jenkins. Meanwhile, Vanya is continuing to live her normal life. She begins teaching a new violin student, Leonard, and the two grow close. Leonard encourages Vanya to audition for the first chair position in her orchestra, which she succeeds in getting. Unbeknownst to Vanya, that first chair position only became available after Leonard murdered its previous violinist. Feeling fulfilled in her career and relationship, Vanya stops taking the pills Reginald prescribed her as a child and begins exhibiting her own powers. Vanya had the power to control sound, using it for telekinesis, flight, force fields, and more. Leonard and Vanya discover in Reginald's diary that he had tried to suppress her powers after they proved to be too dangerous, killing several nannies, which led to Reginald creating Grace the android. When Vanya and Leonard are harassed by a group of thugs, Vanya's powers erupt, killing the thugs and injuring Leonard, who loses his right eye. Meanwhile, the other Hargreeves children discover that Harold Jenkins was in fact Leonard. Leonard had been born on that same day in 1989 via a normal pregnancy, but his mother died during childbirth. Leonard grew up to idolize the Umbrella Academy and went to Reginald in the hopes of joining them. Reginald rejected Leonard, telling him he wasn't special. And so, years later, a bitter Leonard inserted himself into Vanya's life with the goal to manipulate her into discovering her powers and using them against her siblings. Allison manages to find Vanya and tries to warn her about Leonard's true motives, but when Vanya asks about her past, Allison confesses to using her rumor abilities to make Vanya forget that she ever had powers. Enraged, Vanya slits Allison's throat and escapes with Leonard. Vanya is racked with guilt over what she did to Allison, and upon discovering that Leonard had in fact been manipulating her, she kills him in a fit of rage. The other Hargreeves siblings arrive and save Allison, although she has lost the ability to speak. When Five discovers that Leonard was killed, he realizes that Leonard was the owner of the prosthetic eye. With Leonard now dead, Five presumed this meant the apocalypse had been prevented. Vanya returns home to apologize for attacking Allison, and an angry Luther locks her in an isolation chamber. Feeling betrayed and heartbroken by her siblings, Vanya uses her powers to break out of the chamber. Vanya begins destroying the Hargreeves mansion, remembering all of the times she was made to feel lesser than her siblings. Pogo tries to calm her down, but Vanya kills him for his complicity in suppressing her powers. As the mansion collapses, Grace is killed, but Klaus is able to physically manifest his deceased brother Ben, who helps his siblings escape. Five then realizes that he was wrong about Leonard being the cause of the apocalypse, and that it was actually Vanya. With Vanya being the source of the apocalypse, the handler assigns Cha-Cha and Hazel to protect her. Hazel has become disillusioned with his life as a hitman and turns on Cha-Cha, then shoots the handler so that he and Agnes can run off to be together. Meanwhile, the Hargreeves arrive at Vanya's violin concert to confront her. While the brothers think the only way to stop her is to kill her, Allison thinks Vanya can still be reasoned with. As the brothers attack Vanya, she uses her powers to stop them and drain their energy. While Vanya is distracted, Allison takes the opportunity to hold her at gunpoint. Instead of shooting Vanya, she fires her gun next to Vanya's ear. This breaks Vanya's hold on her siblings, causing her to collapse as a beam of energy erupts from her and destroys the moon. Fragments from the moon begin to fall to the earth, causing the apocalypse. Five proposes that he uses his powers to teleport all of his siblings with him to the past so that they could once again attempt to stop the apocalypse. As the world is destroyed, Hazel and Agnes use a briefcase to get to safety, Cha-Cha is killed, and the Umbrella Academy, Vanya included, are teleported to the past. I just want to cut in real quick and tell you about this video's sponsor, Extra Wallets. This is my old wallet. I've had this thing for literally over 10 years. It's old, it's ugly, it's very chunky. When I put this thing in my back pocket and sit down, my whole spine is out of alignment. And this is my new Extra Wallet. Look at this thing, it's so sleek and modern and minimalist, and you can store 6 cards in the top, which are released by the push of a button. You can also store more cards and cash in here, and it's RFID protected, which means any thief that tries to steal your card information won't be able to. Extra has seriously revolutionized wallets with this thing. I mean, my old wallet, it was a necessity to carry around my cash and cards, but this is an actual cool accessory that I love using and showing off. And if you want a more traditional looking wallet, Extra's got that too. It's got all the same great features as the other wallet, but with the added fold for the extra room for more cards and cash. And if you also buy Extra's tracker card, you'll never lose your wallet again. Using the app, you can make your wallet ring if you misplace it around the house. or track its location if it's truly lost or stolen. So visit shop.extra.com/recap-and-chill for 20% off your first order. That's shop.extra.com/recap-chill. These wallets are genuinely incredible and they make the perfect gift. I couldn't recommend them more highly. Link is in the description. Let's get back to the recap. In season 2 of the Umbrella Academy, we learn that Five's plan to time travel his siblings back in time in order to prevent the apocalypse doesn't quite go as planned. The Hargreeves children are randomly teleported to different points in time between 1960 and 1963. Klaus is transported to 1960, where he becomes the leader of a spiritual cult, using his powers to keep his deceased brother Ben by his side. Allison is transported to 1961, where she regains her voice, joins the civil rights movement, and marries an activist named Raymond. Luther is transported to 1962, where he becomes an underground fighter and bodyguard for the gangster Jack Ruby. Diego is transported to September 1963, where he is locked up in a mental hospital after trying to warn the world of President John F. Kennedy's imminent assassination. Vanya is transported to October 1963, where she is hit by a car and loses her memories. She's taken in by the family who hit her, Sissy and Carl Cooper, alongside their young son Harlan. And then there's Five, who is transported to November 25th, 1963, where everything has devolved into pure chaos. The world is mere minutes from a nuclear doomsday, and Five's siblings are all there fighting Soviet soldiers. An elderly Hazel arrives to warn Five that this was another apocalypse that the Academy would need to stop. But before he can explain more, 3 assassins known as the Swedes kill him. Five manages to teleport back in time 10 days, giving him a very short amount of time to reunite his siblings and figure out how to prevent a new apocalypse. But reuniting the Hargreeves siblings was much easier said than done. Vanya, still suffering from amnesia, is content living her new life with the Cooper family. She and Sissy enter into a secret love affair, while Vanya also grows close and protective over the young Harlan. When Harlan nearly drowns in a lake, Vanya saves him. While giving the boy CPR, some of Vanya's powers somehow transfer over to Harlan, giving him powers of his own. The Hargreeves siblings try to remind Vanya of who she is, but she decides to stay with the Coopers instead. Klaus reunites with his long-lost love Dave and tries to prevent him from going to war, which Klaus knows will lead to his death. Ultimately, Dave joins the army and a depressed Klaus returns to his siblings. While locked up in the mental hospital, Diego befriends a fellow patient named Lila who helps him escape. As Diego tries to stop the JFK assassination and prevent the upcoming apocalypse alongside Five, he and Lila develop romantic feelings for each other. Unfortunately, Diego is unaware that Lila worked for the commission and was actually the secret adopted daughter of the handler who was still very much alive. The handler instructs Lila to remain close to Diego and protect Five at all costs. As the siblings begin to come together to prevent the apocalypse, they also run into the past version of their late adoptive father, Sir Reginald Hargreeves. They discover that Reginald was a member of the Majestic 12, a secretive shadow government that controlled the United States who were somehow involved in JFK's assassination. Believing that saving JFK was the key to preventing the apocalypse, the Academy make it their mission to stop their father. The handler arrives to make a different deal to the Academy. She had been demoted in the commission following her failures in season 1, so if Five agreed to assassinate the commission's board, she would give them a briefcase to travel back to a non-apocalyptic 2019. Five agrees to the deal, killing the board and making the handler head of the commission. Unfortunately, Five only had 90 minutes to gather his siblings together to time travel. While Allison and Raymond attempt to reach the others, they are confronted by the Swedes. Allison uses her powers to defeat them and flee with her husband. Things don't work out quite as well for Vanya. She convinces Sissy to take Harlan and leave Carl behind, traveling with her to the future. But Carl calls the police, who show up and apprehend Vanya. With Vanya under arrest, the briefcase's timer runs out and the Academy were stuck in the past. Because Vanya can speak Russian, the 1960s police officers believe that she must have ties with the KGB and turn her over to the FBI, where she is drugged and interrogated. This torture makes Vanya start to remember her past and lose control of her powers. Meanwhile, Lila kidnaps Diego and takes him to the commission, trying to convince him to join so that they could continue to be together. While at the commission headquarters, Diego is saved by a kindly analyst named Herb. who shows him the cause of the apocalypse. Vanya will destroy an FBI building, and in turn, JFK will be saved. The Soviets will be blamed for the attack, leading to World War III. Herb helps Diego escape in order to stop Vanya and save the world. Diego reunites with the Academy, who race to stop Vanya. With her powers out of control, none of the siblings are able to reach Vanya, except the ghostly Ben, who enters her mind. Ben manages to calm Vanya, preventing her from exploding the FBI building, which in turn stops the apocalypse. Having saved the world, Ben's spirit finally enters the afterlife. Because Vanya's explosion was prevented, historical events happen as they should, resulting in JFK's assassination. Reginald visits Majestic 12, revealing that not only had he not been a part of the assassination plans, but he had also been trying to stop it. Furious, he reveals himself to be an interdimensional being and kills the other Majestic 12 members. Vanya then senses that Harlan is in trouble, and her siblings, finally united, travel with her to the Cooper farm to investigate. As a scared Harlan loses control of his powers, Vanya helps calm him down. Unfortunately, that's when the Handler arrives, with Lila and an army of commission agents by her side. Vanya uses her powers to kill all of the commission agents, but the Handler and Lila survive. It's then revealed that Lila was another superpowered baby born on October 1st, 1989, and her superpowers allowed her to mirror the powers of others. Lila fights the Academy using their own powers against them. Unbeknownst to Lila, the Handler had ordered for her parents to be killed so that the Handler could adopt her and manipulate her into using her powers. And now, the Handler wanted to take Harlan to add another superpowered weapon to her arsenal. The Academy manages to show Lila that the Handler was just manipulating her and offers to take her in and love her as a member of the Hargreeves family. But that moment of revelation is abruptly ended when the Handler arrives and shoots everyone dead. Before succumbing to his injuries, Five manages to travel back in time by a few minutes to save his siblings. And that's when the last surviving Swede, Axel, arrives and murders the Handler, blaming her for setting in motion the events that killed his brothers. In the aftermath, Herb, the newly appointed head of the commission, arrives with a briefcase to give to the Academy, which would allow them to travel back to 2019. Lila decides to take her own briefcase and run, leaving Diego heartbroken. Raymond stays behind to continue his fight for the civil rights movement, and Vanya and Sissy end their relationship, as Vanya's life in the Academy was too dangerous to involve a young child. And so, the Umbrella Academy returned to 2019, having successfully prevented the apocalypse. As they enter their childhood home, the siblings realize that they might be in 2019, but it wasn't their 2019. A still alive Reginald greets them, but reveals that in this timeline he adopted a different set of superpowered children, and formed a group known as the Sparrow Academy. As the Umbrella Academy look up at the Sparrows, they only recognize one familiar face, the very much alive Ben, who has no idea who they are. And that's everything you need to know before watching Season 3 of the Umbrella Academy. Let me know some of your favorite moments from the entire series in the comments below, and what are you most looking forward to seeing in Season 3? Like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe to this channel for more content like it, and that does it for me in this video, but I'll see you in the next one.